Hi, boys and girls. It's Miss Kelly, and we are actually going to go back and finish up our review and routines. We never did day 15, so we're going to do that today and go over some of the things that we've been talking about. So today we're going to practice our active listening. We're going to listen and respond to a story. We're going to decode big words. We're going to build stamina for independent reading, and we're going to read words with Latin and Greek roots. Okay, our read aloud and poetry discussion is one of my favorites. It is a poem by American author and poet Edgar Allan Poe, and it is called The Raven. And those of you in my homeroom, now you know who that feathered friend is that keeps moving around the room. So when we are reading big words, when we come to a word that maybe is a longer word or a word that we really don't know, there are some things that we can do to try to sound that word out. And this year in reading, we will be discovering many big words, okay? Many new words, words that may be unfamiliar to you. So we're going to create like a little chart here to remind us of helpful strategies that we can use when we come across a big word that we don't know. So when we are reading big words, one of the things that we can look at first is the prefix, which we're going to talk about more in a bit. And that is found at the beginning of the word, okay, the prefix. We can also look at what is called the suffix. That is the word part at the end of the word. And we will be taking a closer look at those also. We're going to be looking at the base word and look for familiar spelling patterns. You may see a mini word within a word, right? And that can help you to figure out what the big word is. We're going to sound out and blend the word together. And we're going to say the word parts fast, right? We might have to adjust our pronunciation. It might not sound right. We can ask ourselves, wait a minute, is that a real word or does that make sense in the sentence? And sometimes you don't know that until you say it out loud. So I mentioned on the previous slide, one of the strategies that we can use is to look at prefixes. And prefixes are little parts of a word that are added in front of the word to change its meaning. And here are some very common prefixes that you may have seen or heard before. The prefix re, which means again, like rewrite. The prefix un, which means not, like unkind, means not kind. The prefix pre means before. Pre-made means it was made before. Dis means not or opposite of, as in dishonest, means that the person is not honest. Im means not or opposite of. Impolite means not polite. Non means not, right? Like nonsense means it doesn't make sense. Miss, M-I-S, means wrong or bad, like misbehave means like you're badly behaved. So those are some common prefixes that you might see at the beginning of words. So if you see these and you're trying to sound out a big word, you might know the prefix, and that will help you to sort of at least get started with sounding out the word. Now, just like we have prefixes that are at the beginning of the word, we also have suffixes which are at the end of a word, and they can also change the word's meaning. Some common suffixes that we might see are ness, ness, ful, full, ed, ed, less, less, ly, lee, able, able, est, est, and ment, meant. And again, if you see one of those on the end of a word, it helps you to sort of sound out the word because you know that part already. You know how to say the suffix. So here's a fun, cute little video on prefixes and suffixes. And I think you will enjoy this. It's just a fun little way to sort of get to know some of the common prefixes and suffixes out there.
Once it becomes alive, the words modify. Like this, discover, triangle, submarine, subterranean, in some way. Now that the word has changed, there will be something new for us to say. Can you hear what fits after the root of the word? After the word is heard, that's the suffix, there it sits. Once it becomes applied, the word is modified. Like full and full aim, beginningness, happiness, thoughtfulness, goodness, and kindness. Now that the word has changed, there will be something new for us to say. Here's a few prefixes just for you. Empty, counter, extra, hyper, ultra, semi, just to name a few. Now that we know what suffixes do, dictionary able guys will help you too. And it's true, some words have two. Reconstruction, disagreement, unlikely reaction. Now that the words have changed, there will be something new for us to say. Now that the words have changed, there will be something new for us to say. Now that the words have changed, there will be something new for us to say.
Okay, I hope you enjoyed that. So when you are reading a big word, right, you're going to sort of look in the base word. That's the main word. See if you see anything you recognize, any words that maybe you have seen before. And then look and see, is there a prefix? Is there a suffix? So for example, in the word rewrite, you may recognize the word write, and you may recognize the prefix re, and that will help you to sound out the word. So the main word would be the root, what we call the root word. Okay, that's the main word that's in the middle. And here are some common root words. Here are some prefixes that would come before the root word and some suffixes that would come after the root word. So look for those little bitty words within a word, right? Your prefixes, your suffixes, and your root words. And they will help you to sound out bigger words. So when you're reading big words, another strategy that you can use is to sort of chunk it or sound it out and blend the word parts together. So you can say the word parts fast and then adjust your pronunciation as needed. Maybe ask yourself, is this a real word or does this make sense in the sentence? So if you're sounding out the word fantastic, right? Fan, that's a little tiny word. Tick. So you can maybe start out with fantastic. You can keep trying to sound it out and pronounce it until it sounds right. If that does not work, you also want to look around that word, look for context clues. Look for words around the word that might give you a clue as to what the word is. If you still can't sound it out and you still don't know what the word is and the clues aren't helping, then just keep reading and go back later, because maybe you'll find another word that will give you a clue as to what it is. And the context clues can be picture clues, they can be words around the sentence that might help you. So you would kind of read around the word. I sometimes will say cover the word with your thumb and then read all the words around it and see, is there any other word around that word that helps you to figure out what the word means, okay, or what the word is. So try that. Cover the word with your thumb and read around the word and see if that helps. So you can use your picture clues, use helping words. Helping words would be words like, or, as, is called, or also known as. Read around the word. I just told you about that. You could use your thumb. Look for examples or definitions. Sometimes in the text, they will tell you what the word means. They will actually tell you in the story or the text what the word is or what the word means. And pay attention to synonyms and antonyms. If they're giving you a word that means the same or the opposite of the word that you're trying to figure out, sometimes that can be very, very helpful in trying to figure out a big word. Okay, now on to The Raven. And The Raven is a very famous poem, and it is by American author and poet Edgar Allan Poe. And Edgar Allan Poe lived in Baltimore, Maryland, and he spent some time in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania in the 1800s. And he's often considered to be sort of the first writer of like a scary story or a kind of a mystery story. And some of his stories are kind of creepy, but they are kind of cool, and they have a lot of really neat words in them. So the poem The Raven is about a grieving man. A grieving means he's very sad, that's being tormented or bothered by a raven. And a raven is a large black bird. It kind of looks like this. It's a little bit different than a crow, but it's sort of a big, black, scary-looking bird that has this kind of sharp, pointy beak. So at midnight one night, the poem's speaker, the man in the poem who's speaking, the narrator, hears a tapping on his door. And he gets up and he opens a window. A raven flies in. And at first, the speaker, the narrator, thinks it's kind of funny, but then he starts to ask the raven questions. And the bird always answers the same way. He says, nevermore. And the speaker or the narrator asks the raven if he'll ever see his lost love, Lenore, again. And the raven once again cries, nevermore. And finally, at the end of the poem, the speaker or the narrator sort of commands or tells the raven to leave, kind of says, get out. But the raven does not leave. And the despairing speaker, the narrator, who's not happy by this, he says that the raven remains there to this day. So I thought this would be kind of a neat poem to read at this time of the year for us. So here's a video version of The Raven, and it's done in sort of an animated style, but you'll sort of see and hear the poem. And pay close attention. There's going to be a lot of big words that you're going to think, what did he just say? And part of that is because this was written in the 1800s and language was different. And also because that's just sort of the way that Edgar Allan Poe wrote. He wrote with a lot of really cool, interesting, big words. So I hope you enjoy The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe.
Once upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered, weak and weary, over many a quaint and curious volume of forgotten lore, While I nodded, nearly napping, suddenly there came a tapping, as of someone gently rapping at my chamber door. "'Tis some visitor," I muttered, tapping at my chamber door. "Only this and nothing more." Ah, distinctly I remember, it was in the bleak December, and each separate dying ember wrought its ghost upon the floor. Eagerly I wished the morrow, for vainly had I sought to borrow from my books surcease of sorrow. Sorrow for the lost Lenore, for the rare and radiant maiden whom the angels name Lenore, nameless here forevermore. And the silken, sad, uncertain rustling of each purple curtain thrilled me, filled me with fantastic terrors never felt before. So that now, to still the beating of my heart, I stood repeating, "'Tis some visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door. Some late visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door. This it is, and nothing more." Presently, my soul grew stronger, hesitating then no longer. "Sir," said I, "or madam, truly your forgiveness I implore. But the fact is, I was napping, and so gently you came rapping, and so faintly you came tapping at my chamber door, that I scarce was sure I heard you." Here I opened wide the door. Darkness there, and nothing more. Deep into that darkness peering, long I stood there wondering, fearing, doubting, dreaming dreams no mortal ever dared to dream before. But the silence was unbroken, and the stillness gave no token, and the only word there spoken was the whispered word Lenore. This I whispered, and an echo murmured back the word Lenore. Merely this and nothing more. Back into the chamber turning, all my soul within me burning, soon again I heard a tapping, somewhat louder than before. "Surely," said I, "surely that is something at my window lattice. Let me see then what thereat is, and this mystery explore. Let my heart be still a moment, and this mystery explore. 'Tis the wind, and nothing more." Open here I flung the shutter, when with many flirt and flutter in there stepped a stately raven, of the saintly days of yore. Not the least obeisance made he, not a minute stopped or stayed he, but with mien of lord or lady, perched above my chamber door. Perched upon a bust of Pallas, just above my chamber door. Perched, and sat, and nothing more. Then this ebony bird beguiling my sad fancy into smiling, by the grave and stern decorum of the countenance it wore. "Though thy crest be shorn and shaven, thou," I said, "art sure no craven, ghastly grim and ancient raven, wandering from the nightly shore. Tell me what thy lordly name is on the night's Plutonian shore." Quoth the raven, "Nevermore." Much I marveled this ungainly fowl to hear discourse so plainly, though its answer little meaning, little relevancy bore. For we cannot help agreeing that no living human being ever yet was blessed with seeing bird above his chamber door, bird or beast upon the sculptured bust above his chamber door, with such name as Nevermore. But the raven still beguiling all my fancy into smiling, straight I wheeled a cushioned seat in front of bird, and bust, and door. Then upon the velvet sinking I betook myself to linking fancy unto fancy, thinking what this ominous bird of yore, what this grim, ungainly, ghastly, gaunt, and ominous bird of yore meant in croaking Nevermore. Then methought the air grew denser, perfumed from an unseen censer swung by seraphim whose footfalls tinkled on the tufted floor. "Wretch," I cried, "thy God hath lent thee, by these angels he hath sent thee, respite and nepenthe from thy memories of Lenore. Quaff, oh quaff this kind nepenthe, and forget this lost Lenore." Quoth the raven, "Nevermore." "Prophet," said I, "thing of evil, prophet still, if bird or devil, by that heaven that bends above us, by that God we both adore, tell this soul, with sorrow laden, if within the distant Aidenn it shall clasp a sainted maiden whom the angels name Lenore, clasp a rare and radiant maiden whom the angels name Lenore." Quoth the raven, "Nevermore." Be that word our sign of parting, bird or fiend, I shrieked upstarting. Get thee back into the tempest and the night's Plutonian shore. Leave no black plume as a token of that lie thy soul hath spoken. Leave my loneliness unbroken. Quit the bust above my door. Take thy beak from out my heart, and take thy form from off my door. Quoth the raven, nevermore. And the raven, never flitting, still is sitting on the pallid bust of Pallas just above my chamber door. And his eyes have all the seeming of a demon's that is dreaming, and the lamplight o'er him streaming throws his shadow on the floor. And my soul, from out that shadow that lies floating on the floor, shall be lifted nevermore.
Okay, so that is a really cool poem with a lot of really big words, and I think they did a nice job with the animation. So I took some of the sentences from The Raven and I kind of highlighted some of the big words in them, words that you might think, I don't know what that word is, or I don't know what that word means. So the first word is pondered. The word pondered. Now, if I just saw this word and I was trying to sound it out, I might be able to sound out word parts. Pond. I know the word pond. And then ed. I pondered, right? I might be able to sound it out, but I might not know what that word means. So I might need to use the context clues. Once upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered, weak and weary. So when the poet, the narrator is speaking, he's talking about himself. So it's sort of a rainy night, it's a rainy midnight, and he's kind of lying in his bed and he pondered, what do you think that means? So I have three choices here: ate, thought about, or ran. So what do you think he's doing? Ponder means to think. So it would mean thought about. And the ed on the end tells us that it's in the past. It's past tense. So he's lying in his bed. You know, it's a midnight. It's not nice weather. And he's kind of just thinking about things. Now, the next sentence, the word I used is implore. Implore. There's that right? That was a prefix. Implore. Sir, said I, or madam, truly your forgiveness I implore. So he's telling who he thinks is on the other side of the door, you know, kind of like, look, go away, leave me alone, but please forgive me because I really just don't want to see anybody right now. So the word implore, right, your forgiveness I implore, do you think that means to beg for, to ignore, or to shout? So if it's forgiveness, please, I beg your forgiveness, right? Please forgive me. That would be a beg for. Okay, the next one is stately. So there's a little word, state, and then there's the suffix ly, stately. In there stepped a stately raven of the saintly days of yore. So the word stately, it looks like it's describing the raven, a stately raven. And I might not know what the word means, but I can kind of use the context clues to think, okay, he's describing the raven. How would he describe the raven? Would he say that he's silly, majestic? That means like very beautiful and sort of royal looking. Or do you think he's little? Stately means majestic. He's very, very sort of royal looking. He has a very sort of fancy, beautiful presence about him. So the stately raven, he kind of comes in and you know he's there. And the last word is the word beguiling. And this is a really hard word because it's not a word that we see very often, but I can find little words. I can find the word be, I can find the suffix ing. Then this ebony bird beguiling my sad fancy into smiling. So he's trying to kind of rhyme beguiling and smiling. So he's saying that the bird, whatever beguiling means, my sad fancy, that means like he was in a sad mood. The bird did something to sort of change that into smiling. So what did the bird do? Beguiling, would you think? Tricking, flying, or jumping? Well, beguiling kind of means to trick. It means to trick. So the bird sort of tricked him into smiling, right? The bird came in, he flew up onto the statue, and the guy kind of thought that was funny. So he was sad, but then when the bird came in and kind of did this little trick, he smiled. So beguiling would be A, tricking. So that's one way that you can sound out even really hard words or words that we don't use anymore, right? Trying to find little pieces of words, sounding them out, prefixes and suffixes, and also using your context clues. Okay, now speaking of prefixes and suffixes, we also are going to be looking at Latin and Greek root words. So Latin and Greek root words are the base words or the words that sort of a word that comes from another place. It comes from another language. And these are words that usually grow. They don't exist on their own. So you add to them to make other words. So some very common Latin and Greek root words are the words agra, which means field, like agriculture, bio, which means life, geo, which means earth, uni, which means one, lit, which means words, and cent, which means 100. So I'm sure you can think of words that begin with or contain these Latin or Greek root words. They're very common. So let's take a look at some Latin and Greek root words in words that we use today. So the root word agra, if you've ever heard the word agriculture, growing crops in fields, we're reading about corn, right? That is a type of agriculture, farming. The root word bio, B-I-O, means life, and biology, if you learn about biology, it's the study of living things. Geo, G-E-O, means earth, and geology is the study of what the earth is made of. Just like geography, we've talked about geography in social studies, and that is the study of the earth's surface. Uni or unit means one. A unicorn is a mythological creature with one horn. Lit means words. Literature are books or other written works. And cent, the root word cent, means 100. So a century is 100 years. And here are some more. And these are some common prefixes that you may have seen. Pre, there's pre, means before, right? The word pre-test, right? A test before a test, right? Or a test before you learn about something. Impossible, the root word im means not or opposite of. So if it's impossible, it's not possible. Bicycle, bi, the root word bi means two. So a bicycle has two wheels. The root word tri, T-R-I, means three. Think of a triangle. The prefix or the root word re means again. So to reread means to read it again. The prefix or the root word miss means misunderstand. So it means to kind of not understand something or get something wrong, understand something in the wrong way. So those are some very common Latin and Greek root words that we use in our language today. So it's important to know that our words in our language comes from many other different languages, and a lot of our words do come from the ancient Greek and Latin root words. Okay, now we are up to annotating, and we've talked about annotating before. And annotating means just to take notes or add comments. Remember, you can annotate with Post-it notes or just with a paper and a pencil. And as you learn how to annotate, that will help you to develop study skills, to connect to and remember a text, as well as to learn how to track your own thinking. And you will be able to understand the text at a deeper level. So when you annotate, you track your thinking as you read. So we've talked about this before, but this is just going to be a little review. And as you get older and you go through the grades in middle school and high school, annotating will become really, really important. So that's why we want to introduce it now so that you kind of know what it is and get used to it. So if you remember the annotation marks that we talked about, the underline, if it's a key detail, a star for something that's important. You can sequence things by numbering them, circling maybe a word you don't know, like what are those big words that you're trying to sound out, question mark for something that you're not sure of, an exclamation point if it's something that you found really, really interesting or very important. The letter C, we also said like that little infinity symbol could be like a connection, you're making a text to self connection. And a heart could be like, that's my favorite part that I read, or I really love that line, or something that you really, really like. So today, while you're doing your independent reading, think about how you would annotate the text that you're reading. So you're going to try to think of 3 annotations that you would make about your independent reading book. So remember, your independent reading book is the book that you are choosing to read. It's a book of your choice. So if you have Post-it notes, you can use them while you are reading. If you have a little piece of scrap paper, you can use that. And then when you're done, you will enter them into a Google Doc. So today we should know by now how to do our independent reading. We take the book of our choice. We go to a spot where we won't be distracted, right? We get started, keep your eyes on the page. And we've been building that stamina, so we should be able to read for 15 minutes, right? Read for 15 minutes, a book of your choice. Now, as you're reading, you might make notes. You might make notes on a Post-it note. You may not be able to highlight if it's not a book that you own, but you could certainly write notes on a scrap piece of paper. So as you're reading, list the 3 annotations that you would make. And if you'd like to go back, you can go back and pause on that annotations chart, right? And see what those annotations was. Maybe you make a connection. Maybe that's one of your annotations. Maybe you have a question about something and that's another one of your annotations. So you're going to read for 15 minutes. You're going to take your timer, if it's the YouTube timer or if it's a timer at your house, set it for 15 minutes and you're going to read and take your 3 annotations. And when you're done, you're going to go into the Google Doc that is attached to this assignment and you're going to enter your annotations in the boxes. So you don't have to make the symbols, right? You're just writing what the annotation was, like the line. I put a heart next to the line and then maybe write the line. I made a text-to-text connection to the line and then quote it. And then over here goes your explanation. Why did you choose that line to annotate? Okay, and remember, you're using your independent reading book. Okay, you're using your independent reading book. You're not using the Corn Story or the Raven. You're using the book that you are reading for independent reading. So go do your 15 minutes of independent reading, and then you can enter your annotations into the attached Google Doc that is attached to this assignment. Okay, so you can do your reading and then go to that document, enter your annotations, make sure it is turned in, and then you are done for the day. Okay, guys, I hope you enjoyed that. Have a great day.